cool stuff. Cool stuff. How about yourself?
Oh, we're all coming back here. So
never long enough.
Breakout rooms are over.
Somebody told me Clubhouse has already died.
What?
I was talking to a PR team and a social media team yesterday. They said, no, it's not happening. So I thought it was very interesting.
Well, not if you're looking to marry a billionaire. Those forums are still very live.
Okay. I've been going to the wrong Clubhouse meetings, apparently.
It'll find its way.
We need more time, John Brick. That's what we're saying.
John, you're muted.
Thanks.
Oh,
yeah, basic stuff. Hey, Jeff, congratulations on your new gig.
Yeah, it's fun. I figured it's enough to, working with a mega consulting firm and big companies. I thought it was time to spend some time in a startup. So it's very exciting.
Tell us about it.
So in just two lines. So I retired from Deloitte, where I led the future of work practice, and I wrote a book. So hopefully everybody will buy my book, Work Disrupted. But I'm spending a big chunk of my time with a company called Gloat. I know many people here probably know about it. They're focused on the primarily the internal marketplace side of talent marketplaces. Brilliant team out of Tel Aviv, like a lot of the great startups we're working with. They're on a pretty good tear right now. It's as companies are thinking about the resignation wave and the resume tsunami and all that sort of stuff. So it's a very, very interesting time. And they just did their C. This group probably understands this process very well. They just got their C round of funding. So they're really they're in the let's scale and make it happen phase. This is a really interesting time to be scaling a company, looking at the sort of things that we're all working on. So a lot of fun, really interesting. And maybe, John, in a future session, I can talk a little bit more about what's going on at Gloat and some of the things that we're seeing.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love that. I think it's a really, really great thing. So thanks. Hey, any new faces today? No new faces. We got a kind of an alumni group today. I love it. That sounds good. Well, hey, I think what I thought we could do this morning is just kick off and talk a little bit about the OTPCP that we just went through, the open talent, training of coaches and consultants. I don't know, John Healy, Balaji, Brian, there's some guys on the call. You guys want to share what you learned and what you thought and all those things?
I'll say first. I thought it was a really great, beta class. I think we learned a tremendous amount about where the opportunities are, specifically for improving the way that we communicate open talent to enterprises and organizations. And I think the thing that was loud and clear in all of the interviews and the discussion points was the importance of organizations, if they're going to commit to it with real live resources. Mm-hmm. It seemed like some of the consistent success themes were dedicated headcount and stuff like that. So I thought that was a really, really good insight. And also the flexibility and the vast multitude of which companies can truly engage new ways of working. That discussion point and really applying it to the SEI example was very helpful.
I love that. Hey, John.
Yeah, my sense was we also got a better feeling of who our target audience is. We have the coaches and the consultants that are there, but we have the internal organization, and we found very different positions from the executive to the frontline person, and try to kind of navigate our way towards that. I also think that the importance of the consistency of our language to help drive adoption became one of those things that just really stood out to me and was reinforced. If the more confusion, the amount of confusion expressed by SEI, and the fact that their experiments, they had some things that just were not fit for purpose, and that caused them to question the viability. So getting people into the right situation and the right platform for the right type of work, or the right partner for the right type of work, and where they co-create, just some really big opportunities. So as Brian said, I think some great learnings as a beta. So figuring out next how we adapt and prepare it for prime time, I think is the next step ahead.
Yeah, I know. And just remind everybody, so SEI, one of the collective members, was kind enough to kind of throw in as the client in this process, and it was awesome. And I think as John speaks, one of the things that was really interesting to me is who is the persona in the organization, right? There's the Ryan Hick, who's the senior leader, C-level leader, who really wants to transform the organization. And then Sanjay, who's his report, saying, I just need to get work done. Like, and so there's this different place, like where do we enter and who do we support? I mean, Steve, you were there too. Any thoughts from your side of things?
I just second what John said. Is this is really hard, right? That's the one thing I think we all stepped away from, is like, we kind of went in thinking that there's maybe a one size fits all, and it was really apparent that we've got to still tailor to need. And there's clearly a good methodology. We've got really good start on how to get started on that, but really understanding what they need and how to then kind of get them started, and maybe even a start small. I think starting too big, I think can kind of smack you down pretty quickly if it doesn't work exactly right. What I really liked were some of the products that came out of this that really clarify kind of how this stuff works, how it has to work, and some of the slides that Balaji put together and John put together. Like it was just really impressive what some of the products that came out of this that we can build on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Hey, Balaji, anything to add?
No, I think everything was mostly covered. I think at least the fundamental premise or the first principle is that for this to scale, we need more people who can help scale this. We're like 30 people on the call that probably understand it the best, but we need another 100,000 of them that can take it to 100,000 companies for it to scale. And so there is a lot of supply, as we all know. There is a lot of demand, as we all know. There's something that's missing in the middle, and this Coaches is a program intended to create more people that can talk about it confidently, use a similar language set, and bring and connect these two in a more structured manner versus clients individually trying to figure out working with individual platforms or individual experiments, and like something worked and then or something didn't work and all crowdsourcing didn't work. Mm-hmm. Or one contractor worked or one contractor didn't work and all open talent doesn't work. That happens a lot in companies. Or one crowdsourcing experiment worked, which means that I now can use it at scale, which is also not right. I think it's just having a coach that can translate better as to how do you scale, how do you start, and how do you scale is the intent. And I think that's what we're all figuring out how to do best.
Yeah, and I keep reflecting on the last couple of days, Balaji, of your point of like more people have to actually use the platforms as coaches and consultants, right? We have to like really get down to 101, like how do you really use them, right? It's great to know philosophically that this is the right thing and how to do it, but how do we get really practical so that like, I love your perspective. Like you as you said, I think if I can paraphrase, is like, I'm not really a consultant. I'm just a super user of open talent platforms. And that was such a great perspective because, that's what the world needs, right? Is people who really, really know how to do it. So anybody else that was in the group that hadn't gotten a chance to talk? No. Okay, cool. Well, hey, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Pena. Brian, I'm super, as I've told the group before, really, really stoked that you're leading the accreditation process. And I know you're leaning in with a couple of platforms right now, but can you give us a little bit of an update?
Yeah. So we have our first beta prospect for the accreditation. We're going to kick off the call with them next week. And one of the things that is key to the process in the evaluation is to involve enterprise buyers in the review process. So if you're interested in participating in the evaluation sessions, I'm ideally I have one or two enterprise clients or enterprise prospects on these calls to give the kind of enterprise usability perspective. Please let me know. I'll be recruiting participants over the next couple of weeks and months as we really ramp up. So Brandon, if you go ahead and just put my contact details into the chat, I'll be broadcasting that and I'll be taking all comers. So we're very, very excited to get started.
Yeah, great. No, I'm super stoked too. I think it speaks to what John Healy was talking about, is creating consistent language. And I think that's one of the biggest issues, right? With 1,000 platforms out there, all doing their own thing, trying their own, ways to be commercially successful. How do we create that common language across the industry?
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. It's going to really be transformative. I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, I want to call. Oh, go ahead,
And
Balaji.
I think, Jeff, as you take on with Gloat, we do want to hear what you see as elements of success and scale in companies like Gloat and Eightfold, which are younger. The internal marketplace is a younger sector than freelancing and open talent and crowdsourcing, but they seem to scale faster, and there's growth happening faster. There's more venture capital interest. So what are they doing better than the external crowd marketplaces? And I think there's a potential to learn from the other side as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really, really great. So thanks, Balaji. Hey, I want to call out Mark Conant because Mark and Magenta has done an amazing job on the framework. Hey, I don't know, Catherine, is the framework in a place that we can actually put it here in the chat so people can take a look at it?
We have a final version coming out by the end of the week. We could post a link to the almost final version.
Yeah,
the other one is coming out in just like 2 days. Yeah,
this is family. So let's just get the early link out and people can make comments. Just love to get your feedback. We're learning a lot. I think that's my goal lately, and it's just how do I learn the most? And obviously I'm in the middle of writing the book. And so trying to figure out exactly how that goes. Jeff, that as well, pretty well coming off your book, but this marketplace is moving so fast. I wake up every morning going, I thought I had like the point of view right yesterday, and it's totally changed today. So
let me just add one thing there, John. Thanks for the shout out, by the way.
Yeah.
I think one of the very early comments in this conversation this evening was this point about how we communicate open talent. And I think there's a great opportunity to build on the back of that playbook. And one of the things that I'm going to do in the next sort of week is to send to you and to Catherine and Brandon a proposal for let's call it a white paper that I think potentially could be part of the summit, right, which looks specifically at that, because I think that's an area where everybody's got something to contribute. And if we can kind of gather everybody's perspectives together, I think that could be quite a valuable document.
No, I totally agree. No, thanks. Appreciate it. Hey, I'm going to turn it over to John Healy. John, how long ago was it, John? You introduced me to Dror, and it took a couple maybe a month for Dror and I to connect. But man, it's like I had one of the most fascinating and powerful conversations I've had in the last couple of years with Dror. And so Dror's here to talk about what he's up to with Velocity Network. And John made the intro and knows what Dror's doing better than I do. So I thought maybe John could make the intro and put his perspective on it. And then Dror's going to kind of give us his perspective on what he's building and how things are. And we'll open it up for questions as well.
Cool. So just from a context standpoint, it was back in December of 2019 that Dror and I first met in Zurich, Switzerland. I was hosting a design thinking event for the World Employment Confederation. So the lead technology people and a lot of the largest staffing companies wanted to try to understand how could they use blockchain together as an industry to make a difference in the way people connect with work, and could we come up with standards? What did we need to do? Where was our responsibility, not on an individual competitive basis, but as a collective for the industry? And so we had a series of people come in and kind of give us their perspectives to make sure we were level set. Dror was one of those people. We then joined the Velocity Network Foundation and just have been thoroughly impressed by the network that Dror's put together, the full ecosystem. And for me, the real opportunity there has been that we have always encountered wonderful point solutions that address individual problems, but sometimes the bigger problem comes from trying to bridge together the 37 different point solutions into a single ecosystem. And I think that's an area where Dror is doing some things special. And then if we dig into the structure of Velocity and what they're doing, how they're marketing and positioning things, I think you'll be impressed by just the approach that's being taken, and encourage everyone to take a broader look at where this may fit for them, and how we may be able to use a network like what Velocity is putting together to really drive this mission that we have of impacting 1 billion lives by 2025. We can't do it individually. We've got to do it collectively. So Dror, we'll let you kind of take it from there, and everyone get ready. Turn your speakers down a little bit. Dror gets a little excited.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John. Thank you to the two Johns. So how about I'll share a deck that would make my life a little easier. Would that be okay?
Sure, it should be available. There we go.
All right. Let me know when you see my dad. So first I'll introduce myself. Dror Gurevich. I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel. I know the Globe guys very well. I have over 25 years of experience in the area of HR tech. And before launching Velocity Career Labs, I had the pleasure of being the founder and managing partner of one of the largest HR tech system integrators across the EMEA region, predominantly working around SAP, enterprise HR software, integrating and implementing software for large organizations, large corporations across EMEA. And this is where the understanding of the problem came from. And I know that you roll in this space, but I still want to deal with the problem, just reframe the problem for one moment. The labor market, we all know, has become incredibly disrupted and volatile. And, the mega trends for the future of work, like the fourth industrial revolution and the rise in contingent workforce and the skill shortage, and all these trends will only continue to escalate, right? Now, we were at a place where we've seen the large companies betting on HR tech, trying to mitigate the mega trends for the future of work, literally throwing money at different HR tech applications, okay? You can see the data here. It's just staggering. Nevertheless, since we were involved in hundreds of HR transformation projects, we could see that nothing seemed to move the needle for those employers. Although fantastic developments in the application layer with the introduction of AI and machine learning and predictive analytics and smart matching of people to jobs, you all know that. Literally nothing seems to move the needle for those employers. They were still engaged with the same challenges and with the same bottlenecks. And the reason for that is that the data layer, right? The data on individuals, credentials, licenses, career history, skills, has remained as it was in the 15th century, right? So the story said that Leonardo da Vinci was the first one to ever send a resume. It was to the Duke of Milan, trying to get his patronage. And there's literally a document in one of the museums in Florence showing that sort of resume sent by Leonardo da Vinci, articulating and listing all of his engineering achievements and the weapon system that he has built and so on and so forth. And that was sent to the Duke of Milan, trying to get his patronage. And the only problem is that there is no historical record for these weapon systems nor engineering achievements to be ever built by Leonardo da Vinci. So literally, this was the first ever documented resume, and Leonardo da Vinci was the first one to lie on his resume. So yeah, it's a true story, right? At least historians see this way. So we're still relying, in the age of digital instantaneous connectivity, we're still relying on self-reported, unverified resumes on either online profiles as the source for candidate and employee career data. And with open talent networks, it's the same, right? You have very little verified information on the individuals you're retaining, okay? Now, the magnitude of this is just unimaginable. There's 1 billion people that move jobs every year, and this is the usual definition of employment, right? If you add to that contingent and open talent networks, it's much bigger than that. And just verifying they are who they say they are and that they hold the credentials and the certifications and the experience that they claim to have adds unimaginable cost and friction to the labor market. Now, currently, most employers use background screening services, and those service providers use 100-year-old, error-prone manual processes in many times that are weeks long and extremely expensive, right? So just imagine that you need some talent today right? You find the right talent. Now you need to wait between a week to 4 weeks or even 5 weeks sometimes until this talent credential is being checked by the screening services vendor. And this is the age where we are talking about the elastic enterprise, where you have your core team and you bring people as needed to your project and so on and so forth. It's just this is just a huge impediment to agility and flexibility. Now you might expect this to be focused only or isolated to the talent acquisition space, to the entry to the organization, but most employers identify the lack of current data on their employees, right? Current career data on the employees as one of the top barriers to efficient use of their incumbent talent, right? Because people take experiences outside the workplace and learn outside the workplace, and there's no way for the employer to really understand what talent they have under their belt, right? So literally, this broken data layer is the one barrier for the true digital transformation of the labor market. And until we solve that, there's always be digital processes that have to be interrupted looking for verification of the individual identity and credentials, manual work, procuring information from siloed sources that will delay and create a lot of friction in the labor market, right? So I will stop here for one moment because it's not that big of a group, and maybe ask you guys if you relate to this description of the labor market as presented. Silence is golden, or
Any thoughts or questions?
Dror, I mean, let me start. I'm sure there's a lot of. I mean, this is an obvious problem, right? I think it's the solution of it is what's unobvious in many ways, which is it's almost as though, you know, what AngelList has done, which is, you know, there's at least some proof point of what you've done, which companies you've started, what products you've created somewhere. But within the large companies, there's no way to validate the resume, because it's also, validation is competitive in nature. I don't want to validate what somebody's done within my company, because I don't want other people to know what I'm doing in the company. The individual has a little bit of incentive to be completely right, but also has an incentive to exaggerate, and there's no way for that to be clarified or confirmed by the validator, who has other incentives to not validate. So while the problem is clear, the solution of incentives as to why this problem will be fixed is unclear.
Sure. So yeah, when we thought of how can we solve this, it was 3 years ago. But not only solve it, but also align to the winds of change and the signs of times, with people and regulators heightened concern as to issues of data privacy and data ownership and so on. We came up with the notion of self-sovereign career identity, right? What if we could turn education and career records of all sorts, from the university you've graduated, courses you've taken, certification you're holding, licenses, badges, recognition badges, involvement in projects, and so on and so forth. Everything can be turned into a verifiable digital credentials that will be issued by the respective authorities, employers, universities, and they will be issued directly to the individual and stored on their digital wallet. Now, these individuals will be owning their career portfolio and identity, and will be able to share these credentials with employers and other labor market stakeholders across multiple use cases. Now, how would that work? Right, so the individual, in this case Maria, connects with issuer through a peer-to-peer network that we've built, right? And those issuers, once identifying Maria, look for records on their relevant system of records, be it the HR or the learning management or the student information system or the project management, and then package these records as verifiable credentials and push a signed copy of the credential to Maria's device, and only to Maria's device. It might be backed up to her household backup service, but there's no central service, no central network. It's a peer-to-peer transaction. Now, to make sure that Maria will not tamper with the credentials, or hack the credentials. The issuer also issues a cryptographic key associated with each of the credentials, and this key is written to the high-performance immutable velocity network blockchain. It's a decentralized ledger that I will talk about in a minute. So now what we have is all the PII, all the personal information that is based on issuing from legitimate and trusted authorities is on the individual's device, and we have cryptographic keys that hold no PII that will be used at a later stage to verify these credentials stored on the immutable ledger. Now, once Maria would like to share a set of credentials as she selects, right, with a verifier, right, then she basically pushes, again, through the peer-to-peer network, she pushes a set of credentials to the verifier system of records. And once in possession of those credentials, and only once in possession of those credentials, the verifier can access the blockchain, retrieve the associated cryptographic keys, and run 4 validations, right? One of the issuer's identity, that is legit, that a credential is owned by the individual, credential was not tampered with, and the credential has not been revoked at a later stage after it was issued by the issuer, because there's also revocation processes that can be implemented by the original issuer. So, it's just 3 seconds, right? 100% trusted, right? Everything is machine readable, and most importantly, it puts people back in control. Okay, radically improving all these elements, including candidate and employee experience, including opportunity for the individual, and so on and so forth. Now, bear in mind, right, that the credential did not phone home to verify. So the original issuer, once completed the issuing, is completely uninvolved in verification processes. That means that privacy is maintained and kept, and self-sovereignty is maintained and kept. And even if the issuer is going out of business, right, it doesn't matter. The credential is still with Maria, and its verification key is still on chain. Now, the challenge is that to do that, right, and to allow for global interoperability, meaning that every issuer on the planet will be able to issue credential to Maria's device, allow Maria's device, the wallet, to hold and process these credentials, and then share those credentials with any verifier on the planet, right? We need a global interoperability layer and agree, right, on a shared trusted utility layer that everybody will connect to, right? Sort of the Internet of Careers, which is what we are deploying. Now, when I say interoperability, it's not only technical interoperability, which is, the go-to subject when people talk about interoperability. It's not only the ability of the credential to travel from the issuer to the individuals and from the individual to the verifier, but it's also syntax, because everything is now run by machines, by system of records, right? Applicant tracking systems, contingent work marketplaces. These are all system of records that need to understand the structure of each of the credential, right? To be able to map it to their data architecture. Same goes with semantic interoperability. What does the project manager mean? Is it same like a project leader or something different? And most importantly, and in many times most neglected, is the legal interoperability, a framework that will assure an issuer in Germany that under the GDPR that they can issue to Maria, although Maria will take the credential and share it with a Chinese verifier, right? That the German issuer is not, nor the German issuer, not any other verifier is not infringing privacy compliance, employment regulations compliant, Fair Credit Reporting Act, and a spaghetti of regulations that has to do with these type of use cases and this type of data. So at this point, and then also all the issuers and the verifiers need to trust each other, right? So at this point, most people would, say, "No, this is too tiring. I'm going to take a nap." But it sounds like a huge endeavor, right? what we've understood very early, right, is that we don't need to get to each employer and each educator and each licensor and each staffing organization in the world, adding them one by one to the overall network. The key lies with the system of records. The key lies with the platforms, right? If the platforms will embed velocity network functionality, including all these layers of interoperability that are part of the network framework, right? The technical interoperability, the structuring of the payload of the credentials, the legal interoperability, it's all part of the velocity network. If the system of records of the employment world, HR, recruitment, learning, contingent, payroll, compliance, all these system of records will embed velocity network into their core products, allowing the issuers and verifiers to just seamlessly issue and verify through their system of record that automates the relevant use cases and processes, then this is the key to global adoption. Because no one cares what blockchain is used if your applicant tracking system is just able to consume and verify any credentials coming from any applicant, right? But the only problem that we had understanding this is that we've also understood that none of these system of records, none of the leading software vendors of our space, the leading platformers of our space, will be willing to build their next gen data utility layer on a proprietary centralized platform owned by a proprietary entity. Why is that? We now have 2 decades of evidence to see, right, what happens when you build your business on Facebook or on Google, or, you know, they can just change the rules at any given time, put restrictions, increase rates, and so on and so forth. You know, just ask Zynga if they will ever build another, you know, computer game on Facebook. Probably not. So what we needed to do is solve this. And what we did is we've signed up the largest software vendors in the employment space, the largest solution providers in the employment space, to use Velocity Network as their data utility layer, enabling their constituents, employers, education providers, to and other big issuers to issue and validate credentials. How did we do that? So first and foremost, the network is completely decentralized, right? So it's controlled by no single entity, and the infrastructure is deployed across the network of participants themselves, right? Data processors and talent software vendors, the biggest in our space. So there is no single entity with its finger on the kill switch. And if SAP wants to put restrictions on Oracle access to the network, it's just can't, right? So that is sort of a vendor neutral space that made these organizations reassured to start building strategic processes on this utility layer. But I think the most important is that the network belongs to no one. It belongs to the Velocity Network Foundation. That's the governor of the network, and it's a membership nonprofit that drives the network playbook and takes 100% of the decision, with its board of directors elected by the members of the network, from the members of the network, based on their weight in the transactions of the network. And essentially, it's the industry coming together to deploy a shared global utility layer to solve its biggest problem, and then also deploy it, run it, and govern it, right? Last but not least, before you know, I'll turn it back to John, and if you have questions, the network is free for individuals, and that's part of the incentivization schema, right? The network is free for individuals. Verifiers pay, as they pay today for verification services, only a fraction of the cost. Issuers and their data processors earn. So the Velocity Network Foundation is minting a finite number of internal currency called velocity credits, right? So every issuer and their data processor are earning basically credits for every issuing executed, right? Bear in mind, they cannot just randomly issue the issuing event is initiated by the individual, and the individual is basically claiming their credential. Same goes for node operators. All these guys are enablers that earn and stack credits. Verifiers, the demand side, they need to buy access to the blockchain to retrieve the cryptographic keys, allowing them to verify individual credentials shared by the individuals with them. So where do they get these credits? Some of them will get the credits by being issuers. If I'm an employer, I'm issuing to my alumni and employees, so I can repurpose the credits that I've earned to offset some of my verification costs. But if I don't have enough credits, I go to the credit market, I buy credit. That is the mechanism that allows the enablers to redeem their reward. It's a free-floating exchange rate market, and essentially the transaction cost, right, will be determined by the cost of credits and the demand for network services. Starting at less than $1 per an entire profile verification, but moving up during as the network picks up traction, and we'll go to third to a half of the transaction cost today, working with screening services providers. Where we are today, so we've done a lot of the we've done a lot of the work required to deploy this during the last 2 years. We've built a critical mass. 1 billion lives can be touched by these vendors that integrate to the network. Testnet, which is our sandbox, was live since early January, allowing the vendors and software providers to test and to build and test their integrations. We are deploying on September, the first release of mainnet, which is the commercial network. And there are dozens of some of the largest organizations in the world already working with their vendors to deploy right after that. Organizations from the healthcare industry, some of them are, some of the top 5 healthcare providers in the US, the largest banks in the world, logos that everybody know, all of them are working with their vendors to deploy issuing and verification of credentials. Okay, back to you guys.
That's awesome. Thanks, Dror. John, any
yeah, the piece I'd just add in, separating some of the comments in the chat that came out of it is that, one, you're not going to solve all the problems of everyone lying on a resume or the fact that it's a story that's being told. But when we looked at COVID and saw the number of jobs that were eliminated and the number of jobs with equal competencies that were suddenly in demand. So a distribution center got shut down on one side of the street and opened on the other side of the street. A manufacturing plant got shut down in one spot, opened in another. And the inability for people to move workers from one location to another was absolutely incredible. And if you were to look at where the problem broke down, it's the complexity of the way labor law is structured that said, okay, we need all these forms and documents to be signed and to work through because we don't trust. But if you had someone's background screen available, if you had their identity verified, if you had basic skills, maybe not the nuance that makes me a better software developer than you, then we can rapidly move through a lot of these areas. Our estimates, and this is across Kelly, Manpower, Adecco, Randstad, some of the largest staffing companies in the world, is that we can speed up the time of connecting a person to work and a company to productivity by 2 weeks. And there's a huge impact on that. So the piece we're looking at now is that as governments are all getting tied up around digital wallets as being a necessity for COVID vaccination tracing, that the next question is, what other information do you put into that digital wallet? And governments, we believe, are going to be oriented towards anything that allows them to collect wages, collect taxes along the way, and track a workforce. So they have a direct motivation to start encouraging more inclusion of work-related information. The encouragement we're trying to do is get out there and start lobbying for that, because if you don't, they're going to include parts of it, but not enough to make you truly efficient. So the question is, as you start bringing groups together in industry groups as opposed to individual organizations, that's where you come up with some of the standards. Go past, you know, the data standards. There's enough bodies that are working on the technical standards, but what type of information is really the question. And I just take I was on with a group from India yesterday. Of 700 million workers, only 100 million of them are known by the Indian government. So they're trying to convert an informal workforce to a formal workforce. Well, what better way than to start tracking who they are and what they're doing? And now all of a sudden we can start gathering some things in. So it's an area where we can progress forward without being in competition with the government or telling the government how dumb and behind they are, but actually to help them participate in a way that can help get people to work faster. That's all I care about in it.
I want to add to that two pieces of data. So first of all, this is not about reputation, right? You would have to call a reference just to, you know, to ask them how John Healy was, right? But look, in the U.S. alone, there are 33% of the jobs that require some sort of license, and they're all under some sort of compliance framework. And there's also regulations around negligent hiring that you have to show that you've checked what's needed to be checked, right? As an employer, be it about your freelancer or contractor, or be it to your incumbent employee, right? To minimize the chances that they will, you know, do some damage or wouldn't do their work properly. Otherwise, if a third party is being damaged, that third party can deploy Mr. Employer Big Pockets, right? So look, if you look at it from the talent acquisition and sourcing side of the larger corporation, they will never put anyone behind a table or behind a laptop unless their identity, basic credentials, work history, education, licenses, certification have been completely verified. It's just and you know, you might say, who cares? But this is it, right? This is how the world is going. And now it takes them between a week to 5 weeks. It costs them $100 or $130, and it's causing so much friction that literally stops the real, true digital transformation of the employment space. Okay, so this is what we're trying to solve here, not the issue of reputation and you know, people can exaggerate in their interviews saying that, you know, they were the epitome of rock stars. It doesn't matter. That's the second layer, and it will never be, I think, resolved through tech. That's the human side. It will.
Yeah, that's great. Anybody else have any questions? I think this is such a great dialogue, and I love all the questions in the chat. So anybody else want to jump in here? Go, Todd.
I was just gonna, oh, sorry.
Go for it, Todd.
I was gonna actually, so we were in the chat, Dror, it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank you. You mentioned that this is not about the reputation. Can you talk about that? Because to me, that would be a big concern. If there's a worker who had a bad experience, yes, they did that job for a period of time, but they had a bad, just any scenario. Does their reputation, and can it be tarnished? And can it be expired? This is immutable data.
No,
so
no. Look, I mean, how many of you are in HR positions? I don't know you guys. If you're in talent acquisition, talent sourcing, there are two layers to this. One layer is that you have to make sure, as a talent acquisition expert or a sourcing expert, that your candidate or applicant meets the minimal requirement that shows that he is a good fit for the job, right? That means licenses, that means education, that means certification, courses, jobs he has done with the relevant, it's employment history, jobs he has done with the relevant companies, with the relevant profiles, and so on and so forth. That's the first layer. And this is the layer that takes most of the hustle, okay? And there is no way today to verify these facts without going through, mostly manual processes, procuring data from siloed sources, and putting together this type of background screening report. Now, after that, then you have interviews and assessments and references and so on and so forth. But this comes after, right? Now, what we're looking at is a world where the individual has a self-sovereign identity, career identity. That means that if they don't want to claim a specific credential on their employment history from an employer that they had bad experience with, they will not claim and will not show these credentials, right?
And the credential cannot be discovered from a future employer.
It does not exist because I haven't claimed it. I haven't claimed it. It's me claiming my history from the employer. So
Beautiful.
it's like having a blind spot, a blank in my resume. I would get asked, where is this time? What I would never be able to do though is extend my previous or the employer before that to a period that will be, masking that time I'm looking to. Because if I'm claiming a credential, it's 100% trusted, 100% true, and it's based on the system of records of the issuer.
But if I'm a freelancer and I'm doing all sorts of gigs, or I'm already on the open talent platforms, are those credentials building up, and can I reject any one of them?
You have to claim itself. It's a self-sovereign world. Okay. It's a world dominated by the individual. My favorite use case is refugees, right? That have to settle for the lowest level of jobs because they have no way to verify their past career education from their places of origin. Now imagine a place where they can take it with them and it doesn't have to phone home. Even if your university in Syria has been, I don't know, bombed by the Israelis, right?
But Dror,
is black humor okay here?
Yeah, totally fine. But Dror, let me ask you a follow-up there, right? I mean, in the freelance transaction, there are actually two parties, which is I pay the freelancing marketplace or the vendor, and I also pay the contractor. The contractor has the flexibility to claim or not claim in the situation, but I have a relationship with the vendor to get what I need. If I need whether this person was successful or not, what stops me from getting that record from the vendor? Because they are obligated to me to share the information that they have about how things went and whatever they're collecting to show that this works or not. So it feels like while the worker has, if it is an independent transaction between a worker and a client, the worker has full credit to do whatever they want. But majority of the times there's an intermediary, and I can get that data from the intermediary without the worker's participation. How does this solve?
Who's the intermediary?
Could be a contingent vendor, a Kelly Services, or Upwork type of marketplace. We are paying them as well to get the data that transparently about what they know.
Okay, so there are multiple layers to that question. First of all, there are the key facts about the individual's education, history, not history as a freelancer, but the entire career history. They were claiming that they've graduated from NYC and that they've worked for Apple for 5 years. Okay, is that verified? Who verified?
Dror, I 100% agree that there's a lot of value in all of that credentialing. I think there is just I think we're just going back to what Todd said about that claiming issue. Go ahead.
Let me just finish. So first of all, there's this, and this has to be brought by the individual to the to Kelly or to Upwork or be verified by them, right? Which is what they're due today, and pay the price and the friction for that. Now on top of that, right, you have the reputation system that is managed by the intermediary, right? It's an automated reputation system. If it's Upwork, it might be more manual. If it's Kelly or if it's Manpower, but still there is a reputation system, right? Now, if I am a contingent employee and there's one intermediary that promises me to share that reputation system with me and to issue credentials based on this reputation system to me, so I can take these assets and, access other career opportunities in other places. And there's one that does not do that. Who do you think I will select and choose to work with as talent? And we are in a world that for the foreseeing future, it's a talent-driven world and not a contractor or not an employer world, right? So when you ask Upwork or when you ask Kelly, what's in it for you guys to share this reputation that you've collected with the individual? It's just to improve, to bring more value to the individuals so that they will get good experience and will continue to work through them and not through other vendors. Did that make sense?
It did. I just the individual's control and agency on all of their data is limited to what they have control over, not everything that has happened in the transaction. That's all I wanted to say.
Correct. Now, one last thing. There's I've blacked out. John, what's the name of those fantastic guys that I've talked to? They were referred by John, I think. It's a freelancers network or
the Top Coder.
Top Coders, yeah. So I was talking to Top Coders, right? And I was so impressed by the way they look at these things, because I was talking to some of the employment marketplaces or contingent workforce or freelancer marketplaces, and they say, look, the reputation system is our moat, right? We don't want freelancers to take this reputation and move it to other marketplaces. This is our moat. This is what keeps them with us, because if they would go to another marketplace, they will have to start their reputation all over again, right? Which is, I think, it's not a sustainable approach. Top Coders took it to a whole different angle and said, no, this is our members, they call them. This is their asset, and we will give them this asset because this is how we will maintain productive and positive relationship with them for the long run. Okay, so there's a lot to be changed on all sides and all platforms to understand that the age of self-sovereignty has arrived, right? And it's not their data anymore; it's the individual's data.
Right. Hey, Robert. Last question.
Sorry, you may have already addressed this, but can you just explain how to reject a credential or reject a component of work history, like a gap role, like an Uber or food service, in terms of people being able to shape their record?
I'm not sure I understood the question. The
people
use
might
case
take
is
jobs that don't look very attractive on their work history, and they may not want to share those with prospective employers.
So first of all, to receive a credential that asserts fact about your career, you have to claim it from the issuer. So first of all, I have, so let's say I'm claiming everything because I just want to make sure that I have everything. But then for a specific opportunity, I don't want to share some of it. The sharing is also fully controlled by the individual. They select which credentials they want to share and which not, right? And then it's for the employer or the relying party to decide, if they're happy with the set of credentials that were shared, or they want to further investigate why some credentials were not shared. Like what was it that you did between 1998 and 1999? Why didn't you share anything about it?
This is so awesome, guys. I really appreciate the Dror. First of all, you being here, and just love the dialogue. I think we could go on for a long time, and I know we're about 5 minutes over. So let's maybe we should wrap up. But Dror, if you want to come back, let's continue this conversation in a session coming up, because I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff. There it is.
Yeah, just jump on the YouTube channel for Velocity and take a look at it from the chat. Identity and contact, education, employment history, certifications and licenses, training and development, assessments, badges and achievements, gig works, and occupational health. Those are the things that are being either claimed or verified right now. It's not your life, but it's a starting point of the things that are fact versus the things that are opinions right now. So that's the fun part here.
Yeah, great stuff, John. All right, guys. Thanks so much, Dror. Thanks so much
Thank
for,
you,
for
Dror.
coming with us.
My
and I hope you'll
pleasure,
come back.
guys. My pleasure.
Here's all.
Thanks,
All
Dror.
right,
This is
see ya,
beautiful.
guys.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care.
All the best.